On today's episode, the best, most influential design in history. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, what is up? My name is Ron Segal. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the designs that I think made the longest impact on us as designers and on visual culture in general in the world today. Now, this is not some kind of an official list. It's just my favorites. And so I'd love for you to hear in your comments if you think that I'm wrong or if you have any other favorites of the best, most impactful design. Before we jump into the first one, if you're new here on the channel and you want to learn more about graphic design and web design and freelancing, make sure that you're subscribed. Now let's jump into them. I'm going to start with the oldest one to the newest one, not because it was more impactful, just because let's get started with the old history. So I want to get started with this design from Alexander Rodchenko. This is a constructivist design. This style is called constructivism. It was pretty popular after the Russian Revolution of 1917. So Rodchenko and a bunch of other designers back at the time were actually the first one to use kind of cutouts of images, so combining images and graphical elements, and in this case with really bold colors and typography to create powerful messages, which they used back in the time for kind of Russian propaganda. But this kind of style of bold design and using kind of photography together with bold shapes is still really impactful, and kind of, I think, this style lasted up until today. You're probably very familiar with this work from Shepard Fairey for the Obama campaign, which is very, very clear derivative from that constructivist style. So I think this work is highly, highly impactful in kind of we're still seeing a lot of those shapes, colors, and boldness in designs today. So I think it had a huge impact on our design today. Now, the next work that I want to show is this one. So this is the underground map that was designed by Harry Beck in the 1930s. Now, it might look very familiar to you because we are still using this types of maps for probably every underground in the world, from the New York subway, which you're pretty much familiar with this design from Massimo Vignelli, which is also kind of a classical design of the New York subway. But the reason that I'm showing you this subway map and the reason that it's so kind of groundbreaking and had a lasting impact is that if you look at this map does not represent kind of like the real geography of where those stations are located, which is basically what was before. The version previous to this was they try to accurately paint where the lines are going to, but because the lines were too close to one another and some stations were very much next to each other, it turned out that the map was just not readable because too many stations were that very close together. And so what Harry Beck did here, he kind of moved away from saying, hey, a map should be, realistically depicting the geography, into this is kind of a visualization of information. We need to make this accessible and readable, and that's more important than the geographic accuracy of the map. So we kind of move this into a more abstract information visualization, which, as I've said, is super, super impactful because we're still using this mechanism for almost any subway or mapping system for trains around the world until today. So that's really, really a classic, long-lasting design. So I think that's a fantastic example. The next one that I want to show is I Love New York by Milton Glaser. This is a design from the 60s, which I'm pretty sure that you know because this is the most copied or piece of design that also had so many derivatives. So many people changed it, ripped it off, copied it, and it also had a huge impact in the way that it changed how people perceive New York. Now, today, everybody loves New York and it's the big apple and like, wow, New York is so amazing. But you have to remember this design came back at the 60s where New York kind of had a bad rep to it. And this design was pretty much impactful in changing the way that people perceived New York. So this design, not only it lasted kind of as a piece of graphic design, it was also very much impactful in changing how people perceived New York City. Again, done by Milton Glaser, which was one of the most famous, impactful designers. So great piece of classic design. The next one that I want to share is this design from Stefan Segmeister, who's a designer that I really like. I think this one is from the 90s, actually. And in this case, he created an invitation to an exhibition by just etching the typography on his body, which was really kind of a radical thing to do. And also you just look at it and you get kind of this design kind of moves you inside, because you look at it and you feel pain, right? You know it hurt for him to actually do this. And so this is a design that's really kind of visceral, and you feel it inside when you look at it. Now, I think using this design and the other designs that Stefan Segmeister created in the years afterward, he really kind of popularized the use of hand lettering typography in a world where you have to remember back in the 90s, like using fonts and computer and computer generated typography was the thing to do. And so by moving away from that and creating real type by hand, I think he created a whole genre of people experimenting with hand lettering, with handwritten type, and doing designs that are much more emotional rather than just using some type on the computer. And the last impactful design that I want to share is this one. This is the first original iOS when the first iPhone launched, designed by Jony Ive and his team back in Apple. And I think everybody knows this design. And even though it might look kind of old today just because we had some more versions to it, but think about how influential and impactful this design was. It's the first time that the phone was used just as a screen without a keyboard, and these designers had to taught so many new concepts, how to slide, how to tap, how to interact with your with your phone. They did this by creating this style that is called skeuomorphism, which is basically creating icons that try to look like real life things. Like YouTube, it's a TV, clock, it's a clock, right? They actually tried to imitate life. Now, this design obviously evolved over the year, and now we're kind of more in the flat design, but it is a clear derivative, I think. I mean, it's a clear child of where this design came from. And so this design, I feel, was very much impactful when it came out, and we're still using the kind of the original interaction, the original grid of the icon, and all of these concepts that were created with this initial design are still much in play when we are designing for fonts today. All right, so these were my 5 top most influential designs. I would love to hear from you. What designs do you think made most impact on us as designers, on our visual culture today? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.